Welcome to this, what is it, the penultimate? This is the penultimate M&A Forum virtual edition, I guess. This, I think, is, what, 7 that we've done, Bob? Virtually?
It sounds about right.
And I think we threw an extra one in there as a bonus. You would think we'd have all the bugs worked out, but every once in a while we have a little bit of a challenge. But I will do my best to keep things rolling here today. As I said, we have Bethany Miller with us today from the Greater Houston Partnership, talking about building, Houston beyond COVID. What's going on? What are the efforts to? I guess we have actually twin. We just talked about the oil and gas, so we have twin challenges for the Houston area economy, and it's a broad area. Bethany will tell you about that a little bit, but we have historically low. Let's do 3 things. We got historically low oil prices. We have investors who are running as fast as they can for the exits in oil and gas. It was described by the infamous Jim Cramer on CNBC a week ago today as an uninvestable industry. If that makes those of you in oil and gas feel any better, that was the description. And that was after the announcement, I think, of the Conoco deal with who they do. Oh, they did Conoco. So the oil and gas business is taking a fairly strong hit, and honestly, I don't want to admit it, but it's literally been 50 years since I've been in this business. I don't think I've ever seen the confluence of events like we've seen right now. I mean, it's pretty challenging. So we're going to talk about what else Houston can do here in just a little bit. We've got Mr. Augie on the Zoom call, who's going to be speaking to us next meeting, which is November 24th. I'm really pleased. He's coming to us from the faraway country of Nebraska. So I'm going to find out what he's been doing to turn around a challenging situation up there. So thanks, Augie, for doing that. Bob, I know we've had a couple of developments on the M&A Forum business side. You want to take the con for a minute?
I will. We've got a couple of really exciting things going on. One's already happened, and that was the awarding of our first Bauer College scholarship to a straight A student taking his MBA, Khosrow Alexideh. I was kind of hoping he could be on the meeting today, but apparently he couldn't make it. So congratulations to Khosrow. We're looking forward to, he's now an honorary member for the rest of the year. So we're looking forward to having him join us on various events online, and we're talking about eventually getting back to face-to-face meetings. So we're trying to work that out for maybe the beginning of next year. The other really exciting thing is we are adding a deal sharing capability to our website so that members can post deals for everybody to look at and contact them about. Kyle and his group is working on that for us. Thank you, Kyle. Good job. Hopefully we'll have that up by next month. Is that reasonable, Kyle?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're getting started on it now.
Okay, so we'll keep everybody up to date on how that's going to work and how we can do that. So that's the news to date.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. This is Henry Dahir from Midland. Thank you again for this meeting. I just want to say something on what Mike was saying and quoting quoting the CNBC and others. I mean, if you think that there is no era for oil again, all of these things are true. But if you think there will be another era for oil, it's time for smart money to enter, because prices are really dropping a lot. Prices of deals and properties are dropping a lot, and it's a good time. It's a good time if you think that oil, there is going to be again need for oil. Now, most of the time, just between parentheses, most of the time when people are speaking about oil and is saying don't invest in it or is investable, they are speaking about the expensive shale that has given little return for one reason or another. We don't want to go through that now. And it's extremely expensive to drill, but there are so many other formations other than the shale that you could enter and make some good money. Thank you for this.
Okay, thanks, Henry.
And Henry, did I get the decline in the prices close to being right? I said 50%. Is that a reasonable number?
It's even much more, definitely. It's I mean, I'm surprised. Like 2 months ago, we're looking at the Permian Basin, that the prices of the properties at the deals, they are still steady. Nobody is dropping. But now suddenly everything's starting to drop, and it's much more than 50%. I mean, in the Concho deal, it was 75% from where it was before COVID, only 8 months ago in the Concho deal.
75%?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a big discount.
And yesterday I saw Laredo, another small operator here, acquiring. So just not to speak about the big deals, big players, but Laredo is a small operator here, acquired few properties. He would have paid easily 4 times a year ago for the same properties that he acquired yesterday. And I have all the numbers. I could back what I am saying, just for your information. So it's really coming up here a very good time, even in the Permian, even in the most attractive basin, prices are starting to drop, and starting to drop heavily.
I guess the only other comment I'd make too, Henry, is you got all of the oil and gas, you got the takeaway capacity in the pipeline systems too, which I assume is going to eliminate any of the locational differential. So that's very attractive for somebody who has some smart money that's got some patience with it. I think I would say that there are 2 things you need: smart money, appetite for risk, and some patience. But
yes, definitely.
As I said, oil's not going away,
No.
even though fracking may be pressured a little bit. So.
No, I mean, there was the head of Aramco yesterday, or the Minister of Energy in Saudi Arabia, one of the top guys, these top guys in Saudi Arabia. He said it. He said to think about getting rid of oil is totally unrealistic. And
Yep.
and Saudi Arabia, they were planning by 2030. They have this plan by 2030. They are going to move away from oil. They have scrapped all of this because they have discovered that any plan, even clean energy, anything they want to do in Saudi Arabia, they need money. And the only way to get money is through oil revenues.
That's a catch-22. That's a catch-22.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, pardon me, we're spending just a minute at a time, I think, because the oil and gas industry is a very important component of everything that happens really across Texas. It affects manufacturing, it affects process industries and everything else. And there is a lot of scare from some people right now, and it's going to be with us. It's going to be different, but it's going to be with us. And as Henry said, if you're smart and you're patient, you can make some very nice money coming over the next 3 to 5 years. So. Just quickly, this is the M&A Forum. We're here with a vision for an environment that fosters transparency among the M&A community stakeholders, including the business owners and buyers and service providers. And we try and do that through the meetings. We try and do that through the happy hours and different community outreach efforts that we have. really great. Thank everybody for joining us. Two principles that really were on the underpinnings of this organization. That's net weaving. That's about really listening as opposed to responding. As Stephen Covey put it, a lot of people do not listen to understand. They listen to reply, and understanding is so important right now in this situation that we're in, both from a health perspective and from a political perspective. So encourage everybody to listen to understand. And the other element, servant leadership, which is low ego leadership. Richard Branson, of course, very successful, actually has a space company right now. So talks about respect, and respect is how you treat everyone, not just those you're trying to impress. So throughout the organizations that do respect their people, you find success, and you find good employee engagement. You find customer loyalty. So servant leadership. Also want to thank the sponsors for their help in making everything happen, or at least covering the cost of making things happen to a large extent. Appreciate their consistency. I think pretty much folks have been with us for a number of years, including Texas Capital Bank and George Kariski and his firm have been wonderful sponsors. Kyle, you can see, is helping us out as a sponsor as well, and we've got a couple other folks with us as well for a number of years. So, thank you. Oh, there we go. Lady with a surprise for us. Again, very, very pleased. Kind of a bookend where we had Josh talk in January from the Greater Houston Partnership. And I don't think any of us knew what was going to happen as he was kind of painting the picture of what the economic outlook was and kind of where things might go in the Houston area. And just about that same time, I think Bethany was joining the Greater Houston Partnership from Richmond, Virginia, if I got that right. And so she stepped into it, and hopefully she found the water to be pleasant here. She can tell us about that. A professional in community development and regional planning. He's got both a bachelor's and a master's degree from the Ohio State University. Did I get that right? I hope, Bethany. And she's going to talk about developing Houston beyond energy, or beyond oil. So Bethany, you want to grab the screen and say hello to the folks?
Sure. I'm not sure if you have to stop sharing first.
I think I do. I think I do.
Actually,
And I'm gonna.
Yeah. Stop sharing, Mike. And actually, I think we're seeing your screen right now, Bethany.
No, that's mine. That's still me, I think.
Oh, that's still you?
Yeah. So I gotta. Come on.
And I've cut my camera because I've been having some connectivity issues today. So.
Oh, there you are. Okay. It's well.
Up at the
stop.
very top.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, there you go.
There you
go.
All right. Okay. Let's see here. Hopefully you all can see that. Oh, I see it's loading. There you
There we
go.
go.
Oh,
Okay.
yay. Love it when a plan comes together, Bethany.
That's right. Well, once again, my name is Bethany Miller. I work for the Greater Houston Partnership. And when Mike reached out to ask me to present and then mention that you all had heard from Josh Farrago, earlier this year, I kind of was like, don't you want to go back to Josh? Because he's such an amazing presenter. But I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you all today. So I'm just going to run through a bit about what my division of the partnership, and more specifically my team within the division, does, and how we sort of changed course when the pandemic hit. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and we'll just kind of go from there. So just to kind of put things into context, obviously the Greater Houston Partnership is the Houston region's Chamber of Commerce. We have several focus areas, providing a great quality of life for the residents of the Houston region. And that's really for us about the provision of infrastructure, improvements, flood mitigation work. Opportunity for All is primarily about ensuring that all of the residents, all of the people who live in the Houston region today have the skills necessary to meet the needs of the business community tomorrow, so they can capture opportunity for themselves and help us grow the region. And then finally, that third focus is about strong, diverse economy. And that's really where the Economic Development Division starts to take responsibility within this picture, for diversifying Houston's industry base. We're talking about, growing the technology sector, growing the life science sector, growing the energy and Energy 2.0 sectors. And so I'll talk about that a bit more in just a second. And now I'm just going to run into an overview. And always when we start to talk about the Houston region with people who may not be familiar with this market, we begin with maps because we want to kind of create this context for them. So this map is depicting the regional partnerships coverage area. We cover all of the Houston MSA plus Walker and San Jacinto counties to the north. And most recently, we picked up Wharton County to the southwest through an MOU, which is the same agreement that we have with Walker and San Jacinto. Of course, we've been the fourth largest city in the United States. More than 7 million people are included in this footprint coverage area, and a fairly large labor force in normal times of around 3 million people. We'll see if we pop up to the third largest city after the census results come back in for this most recent census. Hope you all filled out your forms. And we've been quickly growing. This is the most recent population growth data that we have, but we're the fastest growing major metro. And so we've added more than 18% of our population just between 2010 and 2018. As Mike mentioned, I'm fairly new to the Houston region, but I often connect with folks who have lived here for many years and talk about just the thousands of people who have moved in to Greater Houston in the time that they've been here. And it's just amazing to think about how quickly this population has really grown. And then finally, when we're talking to prospective companies, because of course the objectives of the Economic Development Division are to locate companies in the Houston region from elsewhere around the globe. My team is focused on the continental United States. They haven't been to Texas before. Believe it or not, there are many people who are not familiar with what the Houston region looks like on a map. And no doubt, as we begin to have conversations with local ambassadors, people will start to use terms like the Woodlands or Tomball or the Energy Corridor or Pearland. And unfortunately, if you're not from Greater Houston, you just have no idea where the Energy Corridor might be situated. And so starting our conversation with those prospective firms in that first meeting when they get to the region with this map, so they can see where some of these, popular communities are, enables them to later on when we're on I-10 headed out to the Energy Corridor during the day, say, oh, okay, I remember that we're on the west side of the Houston region right now.
Bethany?
Yeah, yes.
What's the innovation? I have never heard of the Innovation Corridor. What's that?
The Innovation Corridor is a 4-mile stretch between TMC and downtown Houston. And it really was established around the time that the Houston region was competing for the location of the HQ2 Amazon headquarters project. It is anchored, as I said, by TMC in downtown, but right in the center of it is the ION, which is that $100 million investment that Rice University made in the old Sears building, which is a co-location space for all kinds of technology and innovation, acceleration to happen. The bus rapid transit line runs up and down that 4-mile corridor, and there's lots of organic growth opportunity taking place there around innovation. And I wish I had put our innovation district map in here, but the University of St. Thomas, University of Houston, Rice, there are all kinds of educational institutions that fall within that corridor as well. So really good opportunity for innovation and growth within that corridor. That's how it got its name.
Okay, so the ION is right there where 59 and 45 are kind of making that squiggle right above the I, right? Am I right about that?
Yes, I will say yes, and I'll challenge a person to get a map and prove you wrong. How about that?
Okay, no, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. But that's part of the urban core, right? And it will look really different than property in Katy will, or property in Kingwood will. And so the other thing that happens when we put this map in front of people and they realize that we cover almost 10,000 square miles of area is that there's lots of geographic diversity in the Houston region, which means that we're a good fit for companies of all types and sizes and industry focused areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And speaking of industry focus areas, I think it's always important to just reiterate that there are actually quite a lot of diverse industry activities taking place in Greater Houston. Much of the conversation earlier today was focused on oil and gas. In many ways, oil and gas is responsible for making Houston what it is today. But there is, in fact, lots of other activity taking place in this market. And we want to make sure that companies understand that they can come in with a headquarters operation and have success here, or a digital technology operation and have success here. And one of the other things I think is really unique about the Houston market is the amount of convergence between industries that takes place. Aerospace is one of my favorite examples of that. Obviously, the Johnson Space Center is focused on putting humans into space. And so that is an aerospace activity that takes life sciences into account so that astronauts can stay alive and remain healthy while they're out in orbit. It's also a technology play in aerospace. They're not fueling rockets and jets with oil and gas. So there's a clean energy play there. And we just want to make sure that people understand the diversity of the industry base here. And that means when there are things happening like, the downturn in the oil and gas industry, that there is still a chance that this market can survive and remain successful. So as I mentioned, the domestic marketing team is the team that I oversee, and we go about targeting and recruitment to recruit firms in the sectors that I just mentioned in a really methodical way. We work to attract industries through what we call a cluster approach, which basically means that we group firms within a sector and reach out to companies that fall into that group. So at the beginning of every single year, my team gets together with a group of committees. There's an industry committee tied to each one of these sectors. And we start to talk about what the trends within the sectors are, and sort of come up with the cluster, right? So digital technology is something that we're always going to want to focus on from a cluster perspective, but the industries that fall into that cluster group may change year over year. So energy tech may come off the list and we might add something else that's technology related for 2021 as an example. So once we have worked with our committees to confirm what the groups or clusters of companies are going to be and that they make sense from our business practitioner perspective, we approach the research division or Josh Farrago's team to get a target list of companies for each one of these industries, and then we begin our outreach. So each one of the companies that goes on to the energy tech or sports tech or digital health list meets a set of internally determined criteria that make them suitable for outreach in this market. And across the board, with the exception of the companies that fall on the headquarters list, One thing that all of the companies on the target list will have in common is that they don't have Texas operations. For headquarters, we do in fact try and get firms that have a significant presence in Houston, but don't have their headquarters office sitting in Houston to come into the market. So that's that one exception. At any rate, across all of the lists this year, we had about 1,400 companies. And then once we've got those companies, the job of our team is to set out and try and start to have conversations and bring firms into the Houston region. So in a typical year, we'd be traveling around the country to meet with these firms in their space, but understanding around March that everything would be different for the foreseeable future, we decided that we really needed to take a good look at our attraction plans and make sure that they could be adjusted to what 2020 was going to look like, and then try to salvage some wins yet this year. And so we developed a prioritization plan. It included research, it included my team, the Regional Economic Development Division, and then our marketing and communications folks. And each one of these teams plays a really critical role. You know, research is going to confirm that we're on the right path. The economic development team is going to be relying on its committee relationships to make sure that the professionals who sit on those committees, that there's a good exchange of information about what they're seeing within the market. Movement's totally stopped, or there's big potential for new movement. We do the lead generation work on our side. Marketing and communications is going to come up with messaging and branding. They've got the media relations. They're working on the digital campaign stuff. We just wanted to make sure that everything, given the circumstances, was still going to be on track for next year.
Bethany, are the committees, are they made up of business folks or
They are.
Chaired by partnership people, or how does that work?
So the committees and the chairs are all representatives from the private sector, and they are all folks who are members of the Greater Houston Partnership or the Chamber. Okay. The chairs of the committees are all members of our board of directors, and I think, I should know this, this is so bad, but I'll just say in general terms, at a certain level of membership, I think it's like the second tier of membership in the partnership, then you are afforded, you know, one seat on a committee. There are committees on the economic development side and on the policy side. The higher tiered your membership becomes, the more committee seats become open to you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So after we had the prioritization huddle, we determined that there were some industries for reentry focus. The return of the supply chain, the rise of the virtual economy, a focus on medical innovation, the upside of automation, and then profits in renewable energy. And I'll just touch on a couple of these points. First, I'll talk about the return of the US supply chain. Essentially, what happened when the pandemic became a pandemic and people stopped traveling globally is that a lot of our materials and supplies got stuck wherever they were. And so we believe that this pandemic has made people aware that we really need to do what we can to return US supply chains to the United States. Resiliency is more important at this point than being cost effective. And people are going to move away from this practice of having their just-in-time inventory sitting here and the majority of the rest of their supply thousands of miles away. Even if the manufacturing doesn't come back to the United States for cost reasons, we think that we're going to see a ton of manufacturing activity return to Central and South America. And you all are, I'm sure, familiar with Houston's port system. From a logistics standpoint, we stand to gain a lot from that activity as an entry point into the US market. Some opportunities would be in warehousing and transportation, food distribution, vehicle manufacturing, electronics manufacturing. Those are just a few of the examples, but we think that there's really big potential for us to capture some of that activity. And if you think that the US supply chain is going to come back, then you also kind of have to, arrive at the point that there's going to be more automation to come as well. People, we've seen that there are problems when you put a bunch of people in a facility standing right next to each other to work on packing those boxes that are part of the supply chain, right? And so this means that there's an increased demand for robotics. We've seen for a long time factories replacing line workers with robots. And these changes are really going to last beyond the pandemic. This is kind of like what we saw after the last recession, a bit of a jobless recovery. So industrial robots, AI, autonomous vehicles, software, all of these things we think that we stand to gain from in the Houston region. Once you take all of that reentry focused research and overlay it on those prioritized industries and clusters, this is kind of how things shake out for us. The light blue colors are the areas that pop out with increased opportunity for the Houston market. So in technology, energy tech, digital health, all of life sciences, all of manufacturing and logistics. And then there are several areas within clean energy that we think we stand to see some increased activity. And so our methodology for connecting with companies that were in these spaces changed a bit. And one of the things that we did to ensure that we could still get some traction out of that 1,400 target company list was hire a third-party lead generation firm. So they launched a call campaign for us and have been connecting with the companies on our target lists and coming up with qualified leads or identifying qualified opportunities to have conversations with companies. And if it's a qualified lead, it means that there is an actual project that company has identified, that they're going to hire X amount of jobs. They've kind of got some CapEx estimates, and they have a timeline that's within 2 years. And so we're connecting with firms that are in that space and transitioning those discussions into projects and hopefully locations for the Houston market. We've had lots of virtual meetings, held lots of virtual site tours with folks, and we're working to connect with corporate leadership and continue to work those relationships to advance the success of the region. We also decided that we wanted to host some virtual roadshow meetings. It's really a fancy way of saying webinar. But these are meetings that are just an hour long. We host them over the lunch break. We're inviting anyone from the industry list to attend. It's free, and it's just a conversation about the suitability of the Houston region for that industry. So we've had an Energy 2.0, a manufacturing, and a digital technology meeting. We are assessing what we're going to do about life science. Obviously, we missed that date, but there's a bunch of stuff actually happening around the life science industry in Houston in the next few weeks. And so we'll be working to push people on our target list to those meetings. But those have created great opportunities for us to connect with folks on a larger scale from an external audience, and then capture their information and contact them after the fact or follow up with them to have more pointed conversations about whether or not they have a project and hopefully or a location in the region.
Bethany, this is Bob Vincent.
Oh yeah, sure.
On your previous slide, if you could send me if you would like, we can notify our 500 contact database that these things are available. If you'll send me the information on them. Absolutely.
So all of these meetings that have taken place so far have been recorded. Mm-hmm. So we'll send, I'll make sure that Mike has the link to the meetings that have taken place. And we would greatly appreciate it if you'd be willing to share those with your network. And my contact information is on the last slide, but if you need to get in touch with me or someone wants to get in touch with me, absolutely.
Great. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm pleased to say that we've been fairly successful this year. So we're on target to meet our 2020 metrics. We wanted to locate 20 total projects by the end of the year. And so that just leaves 5 between now and December. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get there. We have had 2 or 3 announcements in the last week. So I feel like, never mind. Let me stop talking about it this way because I don't want to jinx us. But you can see that we're recruiting companies from across industry. So far, the located companies this year have created more than 1,500 new jobs and more than $500 million in capital investment. An even split between, actually, I'm wrong. There's domestic is ahead. Woohoo! 8 domestic companies. That last 8 HQ company that was added was domestic, and 7 international companies. 5 U.S. headquarters out of those 7 international firms. You probably recognize some of the names that are shown over here on the logos. Some of the other ones, maybe not. But in the pipeline of project activity that we have right now, there are more than 140 active opportunities that we're working across the domestic and the international teams. If we located all of those companies in the Houston region, we would create more than 30,000 new jobs and an additional $50 billion in capital investment. So a pretty powerful pipeline. And just a bit more detail on some of the announcements that we've had this year. Greentown Labs is a Boston-based clean tech incubator. The Houston region was its first expansion outside of Boston ever. They recently announced their location will be in the Innovation Corridor. I think they're going to the old Fiesta Shopping Center. Wow. Google recently opened its Google Cloud Sales Office, and Amazon has opened up an 850,000 square foot state-of-the-art fulfillment center. I can guarantee you that there are some automated fulfillment processes taking place there. And I think one of the things that's really unique about this project is that the building is built in several stories. It's not a one-story, flat warehouse or distribution space. So it's a new model for Amazon. And if you look at the economic development pipeline, this graph shows where the activity is spread out across industry. And so going back to that previous slide that showed the economic development wins and how they were broken out in terms of industry, manufacturing, digital tech, life science, when you look at the pipeline, it makes good sense that that's the way that the projects are broken out. So we've located more manufacturing projects. There are more manufacturing projects in the pipeline. That's what I'm trying to say. And just a point of clarity, the manufacturing, this is a description of the project activity, not the company activity. So for example, we could have a life science company that is evaluating the Houston region for a medical device manufacturing operation. That project would go into the manufacturing slice of this pie. For the rest of Q4, we are working to engage site selection consultants. Often these large firms or mid-sized firms that are evaluating several locations around the country will hire a third-party consultant to help them evaluate the different locations and better understand the strengths or weaknesses of communities. Those people are called site selection consultants. Companies like JLL or CBRE, Newmark Knight Frank have consulting divisions within them, and then you have other companies like Global Location Strategies or Hickey and Associates, which do strictly site selection consulting, a really important group of influencers. And so we're working on growing our connections with the people who help companies make major decisions about where they're going to put a brick and mortar location. We've still got a couple roadshow things to do, and most exciting probably is that we've been working with marketing and communications on a branding campaign. And all the time they're working on getting us digital and earned media placements. But the branding and messaging campaign has been a major part of this year and just a really exciting process. So just quickly, that project contained 4 different steps: engaging stakeholders, developing a branding and messaging platform, coming up with some guidelines and graphics. And now we're in the 4th stage where we're rolling out the plan. A bunch of people were involved in this work. The committee members had an opportunity to weigh in. Corporate executives from around the country were engaged, and also from around the globe. So we reached out to folks in Tokyo, the UK, and Mexico. And we also did a talent portion of this work. So we were talking with people who we would want to recruit to work in our facilities here, young professionals, professionals who are in the mid stages of their careers, and just kind of trying to understand what their perceptions of the Houston region were, because any effective branding campaign is going to speak to those perceptions, and in some cases, hopefully change the minds of people who are kind of on the fence about whether or not Houston would be a suitable location to end up at, and raise a family, have a quality of life, build a business. There's a ton of research available on this, and so I'm not really doing service to this whole process, but one of the really interesting things that came out of this was a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There are lots of strengths and opportunities for the Houston market. That's super positive, right? But some of the weaknesses and threats are these things that we're going to ensure that we address in addition to those strengths and weaknesses. So there's lots of discussion here about our competition with Dallas and Austin. That sort of takes us away from this conversation about the fact that Houston is a global city, but nonetheless, it's a threat. People are talking about how we measure up to Dallas and Austin, just even within Texas. The school system is a weakness here, public schooling, lack of awareness about lifestyle assets. As the fourth largest city in the nation, the cost of living in this market is below the national average. That's, all of these different price points combined, right? The cost of housing, the cost of groceries, the cost of utilities, the cost of transportation, the cost of healthcare. When you take all of those metrics and combine them, you come up with this average cost of living. Houston is below the national average. So we're on track with cities like Richmond, where I came from, that has only 1 million people, or Charlotte. And if the average score we're going to say is 100, Houston is right about 96 on that scale. So I guess the important thing to, keep in mind about the SWOT analysis is that these things aren't necessarily true. In the weaknesses and threats or strengths or opportunities, these are the perceptions that people internally and externally had about the region. Now that we're in this brand rollout stage, we'll start to address these perceptions. And I'm really excited because you all are the first group of people outside of the partnership that will get to see some of the new branding. So here is a picture of what the new brand logo will look like. This has a bunch of different applications. It can be put on shirts or hats. It can be embossed in leather. It can go onto business cards. We can use it at trade shows. Essentially, it starts out on this very sort of stark palette of, I think they call it like sand, white and black. And then there's some gray in there, but we can add color to it. And it just looks really clean. I can say, as someone who has worked in several different economic development organizations around the country, that there is no other economic development entity that is doing something that is so clean and so advanced and has the ability to propel us and really galvanize people, I believe, within the community to want to have this brand for themselves and become just organically ambassadors of Houston and help to tell the story about how diverse this economy and the lifestyle and how robust the quality of life is in this place. And so I'm just really excited to start to tell the story with this brand and the new messaging behind us. And that's my last slide. Here's my contact information. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll stop sharing for just a second and turn my camera back on. And once again, I'm just really pleased that you all wanted to hear from us today. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll make sure, yep, I'm unmuted. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bethany, that was absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed that very much. Questions. I have a number, but I've been talking and Bob's talked a little bit. Anyone else want to be the first? A lot of silence here. Oh, let's see. We got
Oh,
something.
yeah, in the chat.
Yeah, okay.
So public transportation definitely was something that came up in the discussions about perception of Houston. Definitely, we need to do more, right, to enhance public transit. I know that Houston passed a big bond referendum a couple of years ago, so there are a few $1 billion that will go towards further building out that infrastructure. I think the plans, the last I heard, had sort of been paused because of COVID. But the referendum, the bond money is there, so they'll do that work. Public policy has actually a transportation committee, so they would talk about that more from like a, I don't know if legislative is the right term, but transportation is definitely something that comes up in the economic development process, but the focus within the partnership sits more squarely under the public policy folks. So that could be part of the reason that I didn't touch on it very much, but it definitely is included in that first image that I showed with the overlapping circles under the quality of life circle, the great quality of life. We include transportation and flood mitigation in that section.
To continue on that transportation vein, do you have any updates on the bullet train from Dallas to Houston? What's going on with that?
No official updates, although I think that there was just a recent project advancement. I mean, I know that the project is still out there, and I really think someone in my division has been connected to that project for like 10 or 12 years or something. And I feel like at a division meeting, maybe last week, he said, oh, he made a comment about some advancement. So I believe that the plan is still in the works.
Will that be expected to bring a lot of business to Houston?
I would hope so. I mean, I think that the more that we connect people in ways that are practical and affordable, and the faster that we can make those connections, I think there are more opportunities for commerce to grow. So I wouldn't see why not.
Thank you.
Bethany, can
Yes.
you, is it possible for you to send me your slide set? We're having a board meeting here in the near future, and I'd like to add to our agenda some consideration of how the forum might help to support this effort of the Greater Houston Partnership. We're small business specialists, and every innovative startup starts out as a small business. So we feel that we've got something to offer there.
Absolutely, I
Bob,
can.
I've got a copy without the secret slides. So
Okay.
There you go.
All
That's
right.
the one you were going to get, Bob. So
All right,
might
good.
as well get it from Mike.
Well, we will add that to our board agenda. And are you the one we should keep in contact with?
You're welcome to. I mean, I'm sure anyone at the partnership would be eager to help you, but I'm happy to serve as the first point of contact.
Well, we'll start out with you anyway,
Okay.
since you've done such a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Gretchen asked a question about wind energy, and that absolutely falls under our Energy 2.0 focus area. So any kind of clean power generation, we would love to have in the Houston region.
I'll ask one verbally while somebody else may be typing. Aerospace.
Yeah.
You touched on it a couple times. You had a little picture of the space shuttle, I think. We probably need to update that picture. But so far, it was just a tiny sliver in the wheel of opportunity. And I guess it strikes me that there's a lot going on right now between Elon Musk and Bezos and the stuff that Boeing's doing, among others, that it would seem like there's got to be opportunity there for a place that hosts NASA.
Yeah, absolutely. We would all agree with you at the partnership. And at the beginning of 2020, we adopted a new economic development strategic plan. And one of the things that the strategic plan did was outline 3 industry focus areas that would each get an industry expert assigned to it to help grow the activity within those industries. So the first one would be Energy 2.0. The second one would be Health and Life Sciences. And the third is Aerospace. During that strategic planning process, we met with the consultants as a region. All of the regional economic development organizations got together for a retreat. And we did a SWOT analysis of our own. And someone who was in that meeting, this is an economic development practitioner, joked and said, you know, I thought that NASA was closed. So I think that, you know, it's one of those things that we need to be more deliberate about focusing on and telling the story for. Somebody just put a comment in the chat about the Tesla project. The Houston region, Texas sent out an RFI to all of the state or portions of the state that made sense for that project. Houston was included, but one of the specifications in the RFI was that the project would take place in what's called an attainment area. And that is an area that meets the EPA's standards of clean air. Well, most of the Houston region is non-attainment. Walker, San Jacinto, Wharton, Waller, I think those are the only communities within our footprint that have met those EPA clean air standards. And so we just unfortunately didn't have a great shot at that project. It is like an Amazon HQ2 2.0 in the sense that there are lots of people within the region who are like, what's going on? How come we didn't get Tesla here? And so it has, I think, galvanized, if I can use that term again, the real estate representatives in the region to kind of get together and say, like, how can we become more aggressive about getting some of these larger projects that are associated with these new and emerging growing industries, transitioning industries into the Houston region, and just, you know, have that activity, have those wins, help change the perceptions of what Houston can provide as a market. I will say that there is no other place in the country that I think would be better suited for Tesla and for SpaceX. Because of our focus on clean energy, because of our focus on aerospace, because of the people in the region who have the skills that are suitable for both of those companies. But unfortunately, we just couldn't cross that air quality hurdle. And so that's not a project that we ever had a really good shot at.
Hey, Bethany, I have a question, please.
Sure.
Well, thank you for your presentation, but let me understand this. So Energy 2.0 is about new technologies within the energy space and mostly focusing on energy transition. I mean, because in the meantime, we still need oil and gas during this transition period.
Yeah.
And where like innovation in oil and gas, where it falls, please?
Energy tech is really about innovation in oil and gas, right? Trying to make sure that you are extracting, you know, your product in an efficient way. And
you are interrupting a lot, please.
I'm sorry.
If you don't mind repeating, thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Well,
you're packeting. Yeah, you're packeting, unfortunately, Bethany. I don't know if we're going to be able to.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Wonderful. Yes.
Okay. Energy tech, we would definitely consider as something that is tied directly to oil and gas production. And we certainly understand the importance of, you know, traditional oil and gas for the Houston region and for the economy. And to the point that you made earlier, we don't believe that oil and gas production is going away anytime in the near future. But we also want to be forward-looking as an economy and as a location. And we would be remiss if we didn't start to think about clean energy generation, and how to ensure that within that industry or within that sector, we are paying attention to how to diversify that production.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, and within this new energy or the clean energy initiative, are you getting support from majors? Because we have seen now a lot of the Shell of the world and BP and Total, which all of them have big presence in Houston, have made solid goals to move to the clean energy. Are you getting support from any of those companies, oil and gas companies?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So on the Energy 2.0 committee, all of the majors have a seat. Someone from all of the majors. There's somebody from Shell, from Chevron. Yes, they are fully engaged. Those are some of the partnership's largest members, as you can imagine. And they're fully engaged in this conversation, not only on the economic development front, but also on the public policy front.
Thank you, Bethany.
Okay.
I appreciate it very much. I've got one more question if we can get your packeting done, but I cannot leave that Tesla comment without pointing out that we have a strange view sometimes that regulations are job killers. Mm-hmm. And here we find out we lost part of the future because we were busy blowing crap in the air. So, I just really upsets me sometimes. Regulations properly put together, regulations capture the cost, the total cost of doing an activity, whether it's petrochemicals or it's a feedlot out in Nebraska, where Augie is. But we got to quit telling ourselves, geez, we got rid of regulations, hallelujah. It doesn't help. It costs us lots.
What I would say, and just from a general point, is that companies have cultures, right? No two companies are really the same. And so, in my opinion, what that really speaks to is the culture that Elon Musk wants to convey with his company and through his activities. Some companies really want to be in the urban core so that their employees can ride public transit or bike to work. And some companies don't mind being out in suburban communities where you almost have to have a car to get back and forth. And so I think there's something to be said for the regulatory environment that we have in this country and how that affects the decisions of companies. But I think, also just more generally, companies are a lot like people, and some want some things and others need other things. So that's why I love economic development. So fun.
Well, sorry for the speech. Can you unshare I think you have to unshare your screen for me to get back, I think.
Oh, no, it's not being shared anymore, is it?
I'm still seeing your screen, it looks like. No? Well, what happened to my... okay. Hold on just a minute. There's a PowerPoint, but it's not showing up on, I don't see it on my screen. That's weird. Why is it not showing up on my screen? Huh. Are you seeing my screen, folks?
No.
Let's try that.
There you go.
Okay, and are we seeing the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, one quick, we've got some people on and some people off, but here's a way to contact folks, and we've got Bethany's contact here too. Before I go to the last slide, Bethany, what, at least so far, we're not through the pandemic by any means, but what has struck you about what you have done, you being the Greater Houston Partnership, that is going to make a difference in a good way going forward once we get on the other side, whenever that is?
You know, just as an organization, it's been great to see how enthusiastic people are about the work that we're doing. We've really, and still find ourselves in a fairly successful spot. It hasn't been easy, but I think it's a testament to the fact that people believe in the Houston region. They are eager to play a role in helping Houston find its success. And we can do that whether we're sitting in the office or sitting in the spare bedroom like I am now, fairly successfully. So that's been great.
Hey, thanks. Yes, the spare bedrooms turned into spare offices. Okay, I don't know, Bob, any final comments from your side?
Yes, excellent job, Bethany. I think before we leave, we need to give Bethany a big hand. So everybody give her the clap.
That was excellent, and actually kept on right on going through that. And some good questions. Thanks for Gretchen and some of the other questions. We're at the end of what's been a long season, almost in M&A form. As I say, we're not through the pandemic yet, but very, very, very soon our phones will stop ringing. Our inboxes will stop filling up with requests for money or support or whatever, and the election will be over. So I thought it was worthwhile to keep in mind what Sam Adams, I guess the namesake of the beer, pointed out quite some time ago, that the wisest competition or the wisest laws will secure liberty or happiness for people whose manners are universally corrupt. So let's pray for a clear line forward when we get through next week. I thank everybody. Really, it's been great. Bethany, thank you. And we will, I guess, call it a day. We'll see you on the 24th, I think, of November with Doggy. So
it's starting to snow here in Midland now.
Whoa. Okay. So this is when hell freezes over, Henry?
In October. Usually we have 100 until end of October. Now today, just now, as I am talking to you, I'm looking from the window, it's starting to snow.
Well, on that upbeat note, we will call it a day. Thanks, folks. I appreciate it.
2020.
It is 2020.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, everybody. I don't know how to shut it off.